Hello and welcome to Community Connection. I'm Iowa City Mayor Bruce Teague. August 10, 2020 is a day that will be remembered as hurricane strength winds rolled across the state of Iowa, leaving a path of destruction. As the Iowa City community continues to pick up the pieces, there are many challenges that still lay ahead of us. Here to discuss the recovery efforts from the destruction left behind is Iowa City Public Works Director Ron Kanucky. Thank you so much for joining me today, Ron.
Thanks for having me, Mayor Teague.
Yes, well, I'll tell you that Iowans are very familiar with harsh weather, right? We have had zero below weather, tornadoes, but can you kind of talk about how this storm is unique? Because it lasted a long time. And can you just talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think what made this storm unique versus other storms that I've been involved with is just the size of the storm. You know, in 2006 when we had our tornado, that tornado really was a small portion of our community. When we have floods, that's also a small portion of our community because there's a limited amount of low lying area. But with this event, it pretty much was community wide. And there was some areas was less damage than others, but pretty much it touched every part of our community. And then the other part that makes us unique is because it was so widespread. We're in a situation where the folks in our public works department that we rely on to help us do that recovery also had damage at their homes and at their farms, and so it really had a wide impact, both from a community standpoint, but then also from the personal standpoint for our staff members.
You're right. This storm really impacted a large area. The state of Iowa, the governor has had a disaster declaration that she submitted, requested funds from the federal government, which now there will be around $4 billion coming into certain counties within Iowa. What does that mean for our community, Johnson County here locally, with that declaration and some of those funds?
So what that means for us locally, from the individual disaster standpoint, it opens up some resources for our community members. For us as a public works department, as a city, what those dollars will allow for is to help us offset the damages that we have in our community. When we did our initial damage assessment that we turned in as a part of the information gathering that the governor had for her request that she made, we estimate based on some damage to some buildings, a lot of staff time and debris removal. We estimate we'll have around $900,000 in costs that we're going to incur as a part of this disaster. And so with that disaster declaration, it will help us to recover some of those costs that we have as we make our recovery.
And for individuals that have some challenges with recovery within their own homes, will this money also address that, or is that something still forthcoming?
So my understanding is the dollars that were requested as a part of this is included in those individual damage grants, and so those are based on it's a need-based program here in our Johnson County. The Hawkeye Area Community Action Program is the one that actually oversees the application process for that, and so that group is HACAP, and so. Any individuals can call into them. Their number is 319-739-0056 and start that process as far as the grant application goes.
So when we're talking about immediate concerns after the storm came through, it was electricity by far. There was a lot of concerns about people needing to get their electricity back on. We have individuals that may have had medical needs for the need for electricity if they're on oxygen. So how did the city work with Mid-American Energy to kind of lay out plans for our city?
our initial immediate need that we came up and faced was our water plant. And so with we have our water plant north of I-80, but our well field is actually down on the peninsula by the dog park. And so we didn't have power to our well field, which then limited our ability to produce water. Luckily, we have capacity in the system, but that it definitely was the immediate need. We were able to work with Mid-American on that, and they actually had power back to that area by midnight on Monday. So that was the immediate need. And then as we've, as various areas came up and concerns came up, it was both a combination of City of Iowa City passing information on, and then also Johnson County Emergency Management passing information on to Mid-American to really focus on the areas that needed to have the focus on, whether it's elderly facilities, senior living areas, or those other folks that have those needs. And then also with that, Johnson County Emergency Management also worked with our other medical providers within the community to make those targeted visits to those folks where we did know that we have those folks on oxygen and some of those other things from a medical needs standpoint.
Well, the water plant and the waterways treatment plant or facility, very happy to hear that there was a quick response, because that could be major challenges for the entire community, right?
That's
so
correct.
I'm happy to know that you all were able to get on that right away. I know some of the things that's been on people's minds is really the debris that is all across the city, and what are some of the things that people can do in order for some of the trees and limbs to be removed from their property?
So we currently have obviously the landfill is the first place that folks can take that yard waste and those debris out. And right now, the way that we're operating, if you've hired a contractor to come and clean up your yard for you and get those debris cleaned up, they're actually going to haul that to the landfill, because that's the location that we have identified for those commercial haulers. We have our crews. Whether it would be city crew, the DOT crews, Johnson County's crews are out collecting things curbside currently. And that's going to be a long process, but that material is actually being taken to a city property. We call it Meskwaki Park. It's actually a former landfill kind of south of McAllister Boulevard on the west side of the Iowa River. And then we've also opened up another residential yard waste stockpile area, and that's near the transit facility. 1200 South Riverside Drive, that we opened up on Saturday, allowing folks to, instead of having to go out to the landfill a little bit closer to town, and they can actually drop their yard waste off there.
We've seen just a huge response of neighbor helping neighbors when it comes down to debris within our community, as well as the businesses stepping up and doing what they can during this time. How much of the Midwestern mentality do you think had to play within how neighbors actually came together during this time?
As always, in any of the disasters I've been involved with here at the city, it's always that part of it. It's the neighbors helping neighbors, and I think it's amazing to see how the neighborhoods do come together to get those things cleaned up. And it's also not only is it a matter of helping themselves, but in some areas they were out and getting roads cleaned up and getting at least getting to the point where instead of waiting for city crews to come through and pushing debris back, they were out there cutting things up to open up their access to their homes. And so it always amazes me at how our community, the resilience that we have in the way folks work together to overcome these types of events.
In response to like the cleanup efforts people are doing, can you speak a little bit to safety related to using machinery, taking down limbs? We know that if power lines are near, there are some precautions people need to take. Tell us, how can we do some safe things right now?
Luckily, right now, in our community, Mid-American has done a very good job of coming in and getting power restored to most of our community. And a part of that is their response to, getting the trees off of the power lines, getting the power lines de-energized and then re-energized as they get them installed. And so obviously if there's any power lines down, stay away. Don't be involved in those things. But then the other aspect of it is, if you're not used to handling a chainsaw, maybe we shouldn't be using a chainsaw. I'm not aware of, I guess I'm only aware of one incident where we've had a community member hurt themselves in regards to how they've been doing the cleanup. But I think what I've seen is, if you're not used to handling those things, you're probably best to leave that to a professional to take care of those things for you.
And the other thing is COVID is still in our community, and the storm happened at a time which was unfortunate that we still had this huge concern with COVID. What are some things that you would recommend for individuals, these, that are helping each other out, that aren't a part of the same household?
Yeah, I mean, as we've been working through with our crews, we're trying to stay socially distanced as best as we can. But in those times when we cannot socially distance, we're wearing masks to make sure that we don't reduce any risk that is there. And that would be the same recommendation that we would have for our community members as folks are, that Midwestern help is there and in the good old fashioned way we do things, just to be cognizant of that and make sure that you're protecting yourself and wearing your mask or a face shield, just to, limit that exposure as much as we can.
So the city has resources that people can go to learn of some of the recovery efforts and some of the resources. Do you have that website that you can share with us today?
I do. The City of Iowa City on their website has been updating and making resources available. And that website is icgov.org, and then it's storm recovery. And what that'll allow them to do is get right to that access point. And currently right now, it's also on the main banner that's there on the webpage when you come in. But that icgov.org storm recovery is the website that'll be the easiest for them to get access to those additional resources that are out there.
Is there anything that you want to talk about as we end our time here today? We talked about, a lot, but I wanted to just allow you any more time to just speak to individuals in our community that may be suffering on a personal note.
You bet. I think the response that we've seen from our community members as our staff have been going out and getting debris cleaned up has been amazing. Obviously, folks are very appreciative, and we appreciate that as well as we get into those neighborhoods. From a debris standpoint, one thing that I would ask and appreciate is as we bring that debris out to the curb, as our crews are picking things up, try to avoid mailboxes and signposts and fire hydrants and any of those things that are out there because a lot of times they'll be buried and hidden, and that creates a whole other issue that's out there. And so as folks are doing their cleanup, try to avoid stockpiling around those things and be patient with us. Obviously there's a lot of debris out there. We're doing our best to get through the community. We'll definitely be making more than one pass to get this storm cleaned up, but it's I think from where we were at a week ago to where we're at today, it is truly amazing what we've been able to accomplish in this week.
Well, thank you for being a part of today, and thanks to everybody in our city that have been personally directly impacted. Thanks for your patience. Thanks for working with the city. And we're still working hard out there, as you just mentioned. So thank you again, Ron, and enjoy the rest of your day.
You too, Mayor. Thank you very much.
Yes. That's our show today. We want to remind you one more time that we've got updates on recovery efforts on our website. Visit icgov.org/storm recovery to follow along and check out our list of community resources. We'll be back later this week with another episode of Community Connection on the 2020 Census. Until then, be safe, Iowa City.